2021 Porsche Turbo S Coupe. The monster of Porsches, really the giant killer of all cars, is a beast. There's just not many cars that one can sit in. Ferrari, Lamborghini. When you get to these levels of what this car delivers, there are few peers. Porsche does have a couple of cars that might be marginally quicker, but you'd be hard pressed to tell. And we're going to take a quick look at this thing right now. So, presentation. So, the look inside and out, the Porsche-ness of it. Is it a Porsche still? This is a fairly hefty, relatively speaking, car carrying all sorts of modern technology. The days of super light Porsches is gone, but it still looks like a 911. In fact, looking at this fairly standard Turbo S in the sense that there's many additional mini options that Porsche offers, both interior and exterior, from different types of seats, different types of upholstery, different crestings, different badging. This 911 is really the way that Porsche intended Turbo S's to look, and it's successful. Though it's bigger, it doesn't feel bigger when you look at it from the outside, and when you're driving it, it doesn't feel really substantively bigger than 911s of old. It does feel like there is more 911 there, but the lineage is there. It's tasteful, good looking, not quite as minimalist, but if you want to be in the Porsche of Porsches, this really is amongst the Porsche of Porsches that's available right now, and certainly of the very best Porsche vehicles that's available in the marketplace. Porsche turbos, starting from the 1970s when the first 911 Turbo was introduced into the marketplace, and that was at a time when turbo technology was really new for cars on the road. This turbo iteration, like all previous turbo iterations of the 911, is really amongst the very highest performance car that is available from Porsche as a manufacturer, and it's intended to be so. It's not necessarily always the most visceral 911 iteration in the marketplace. There are GT2s and GT3s over the time, and some of those cars are really quite wild. But this is very much the performance Porsche in the Porsche lineup, maybe slightly softened relative to those. And from a driving perspective, the first thing that really stands out is that you push too hard on that gas pedal and things start to hustle by very, very, very quickly. So this car has got more than 600 horsepower. The last one we drove was about 460 horsepower. This one's supposedly about sort of 617, 618. However, there's some discussion about whether that's entirely accurate, because these things are just unbelievably monster quick. So here we're going into the thing. Oh, still a lot of sound though, eh? Brakes are sharp as fudge. This thing is super dialed in. Come into the main corner. Little honk to the team. The big corner, give her some. Oh, the turbo is a monster. Wave at the other part of the team. Go through the end. Oh, and we didn't even get most of it. This thing deserves like a hunter-killer mode. In fact, this car is capable of getting you pulled over and having your car impounded in seconds under any circumstances. And the ambient capacities and levels of performance and the way in which these cars seamlessly, through the liberal use of new technologies and through just simply good engineering and very large tires and brakes, it doesn't feel pushed. And so getting to a place where the police are just taking your car on the side of the road is something that can happen if you're not too careful, almost unnoticeably, which is both a positive and a negative depending on how you look at it. But from a driving perspective, definitely performance is amongst the very highs. Handling is gone are the days where you're worried about taking Porsches into corner, carrying too much speed and having strange things happen with the back end. These cars are carrying very complicated and sophisticated technologies, both active and passive, to manage the car's handling behavior. So you can feel like a hero and look like a hero when you're driving this car most of the time. Because it's all-wheel drive in inclement weather, it's really rather friendly. And actually, it really does have a dual personality. So the performance driver that I aspire to be can come out in this car and not kill anybody. And we're gonna put it down. And it is insanity. This thing is super fast and it bites. You hear the little crackle at the back? At the same time, the tractability and livability and comfort of this car is such that there really isn't any supercar performance compromise that's taking place. Seeing out and around the car, visibility is very good. Because of the compact nature of 911s, they've always been compact relative to some of their performance brethren. Makes this car fairly easy in just about any circumstances that you can find yourself driving, from a size and placement perspective. The way that things function in the car is reasonably intuitive. I did find that some of the interaction with the stereo and other functionality found in the center binnacle or the center console to be a little bit challenging, but that largely is a reflection of just the various dynamics that are available to you for you to change or control within the car that itself. And this car is running a twin turbo 6-cylinder engine with absolutely gargantuan horsepower and torque. I literally can't remember, but I do remember that the performance figures of achieving 0 to 60 miles per hour in sub 3 second increments is actually possible in this car, which is getting into race car world. And so it's a wonderful thing that you can now have a car that really duplicates the abilities of a race car from 20 years ago or 15 years ago. And at the same time, it's a car that if you're going to a restaurant and you need to park it or you need to get in and out of it or drive slowly in traffic, the stereo works very well, the Bluetooth system works very well. Air conditioning, all of these things work in a manner where you don't feel like you're making a whole bunch of tough choices to own this car. In fact, the only tough choice about owning this car may have to do with the price of it, which is something that we'll cover off momentarily. Livability. So the highs of the livability of this car, livability meant to capture the day-to-day usage of this car, and is it going to be something that's hard to live with or easy to live with. So by and large, the car functions and operates in a manner that makes it versatile for using it for any number of different things. It's a wonderful place to be. The only downside that I can say with some sincerity, and it's not unique to Porsches, but the 911 Turbo S 2021, tires, brakes, these things, these cost items for this car are very expensive. Servicing this car will be very expensive. The types of mechanic and technology required to interface with the car properly is a scarce commodity. This is a situation where a Porsche dealership, to do the vast majority of what is needed to keep this car functioning at 100% and on the road, it's really only Porsche. In fact, there's parts of this car that one cannot even access. And so while it's functioning and not needing any additional work and under a new car warranty, this car feels like a bit of a cream puff. The other side of that equation, though, is This is a thoroughly modern, very expensive, effectively it's a hypercar, and with that comes expensive costs and scarcity of resources to work on the car, fix the car, service the car. This is not as simplistic as many other cars in the marketplace are, where one isn't able to go to a local mechanic and get a number of things looked at without having to go too far or do too much work to get the interface that you need to diagnose what's going on with the car's computers, or what kind of fault codes the engine is reading. This is a car that is going to be expensive and challenging to own when it has problems. But the dividend is unbelievably fun to drive, very quick, and quite docile and luxurious even in other circumstances. As mentioned earlier, pricing of this car, much like the premier element of where this car sits in Porsche's lineup, these cars, like the Turbo S's, even with a low baseline of equipment on them, you know, you're starting in effectively the $250,000 Canadian zone from an acquisition cost perspective. Good news is that getting one is easier than it has been post-COVID. There isn't a ton of them around, but there are certainly more accessible new cars, and there are even some used cars around that are also accessible. But as I said, I mean, they really start in well north of $200,000 on a pre-tax level. There's going to be a luxury tax in Canada that's also applied to that. It's a federal tax. It's very pleasant. This car doesn't have many performance peers. Really, actually doesn't have almost any performance peers. And when you really look at the cars that it compares against, its $250,000 plus price tag is in no way unreasonable. After spending some time floating around in this engaging rocket ship of a Porsche, do you want one? Should you get one? What is the quick take view of this car? And it's very positive. I mean, if you can get around the asking price or the entrance cost to a vehicle like this, or this particular Porsche, yeah, I mean, it works. It works on many levels. It feels fun, fast, engaging, if ever so slightly a little bit heavier than Porsches of the past. It delivers in terms of being a car that is a Porsche turbo in every sense of the word. Porsche turbos, 911 turbos, stand for amongst the best of the Porsches available, certainly amongst the fastest, usually amongst the visually best looking, and this car just simply checks all of those boxes. This is a car that, with the right care and management, which may not be inexpensive, you are gonna thoroughly have a wonderful time, and you're gonna love it.